These changes aren't limited to the city. 10 hours by train and another half day of driving will bring you here to Nilanga, a small farming village. Laken Joseph has invested a lot of time helping to organize humanist centers in the villages throughout the region. Like Silo and the other Siloists, he's an unpaid volunteer.
They organize to see what are the problems which are faced in the villages, and they work for solving those problems.
First on the list was electricity, something they'd never had before.
And then they organized different kind of computer centers here. On that computer centers, they try to give all the informations to the farmers. Here they also teach them how to do better farming, better organized systems, and change the costing of the farming by making new inventions into the farming.
One of the most important innovations involved switching from expensive chemical fertilizers to organic farming. This would be an extraordinary story, even if it only involved this village or that slum. But it involves much, much more. Invisible to the mass media, unreported in the news, the consequences of Silo's message are transforming lives in the largest cities and in over 1,000 villages in India alone. But all of that was to unfold in the years following Silo's brief visit in 1981. Back then, he traveled from Mumbai to Sri Lanka for meetings with members of the Buddhist community. He also met with Sri Lanka's Prime Minister, Rana Singh Pramadasa. The meeting was civil, but the Prime Minister was unusually forthcoming. He told Silo it was pointless for a foreigner to come here and preach nonviolence in this peaceful Buddhist nation. Some years later, Pramadasa was assassinated, and Sri Lanka continued its plunge into a violent civil war, which has continued till today. But another national leader was to prove more receptive. Kenneth Kaunda was then the president of Zambia and the head of the only political party permitted under laws he himself had created. But Kaunda declared himself a humanist, and in 1989, Silo responded to repeated invitations to visit him. At that meeting, Silo insisted on the need for Kaunda to allow real democracy in Zambia. It was an encounter that Silo used as the basis for one of the stories in a collection of his tales that received an Italian literary award. But did Silo's visit influence Kaunda's subsequent decision to allow free elections? He's never said so. A few years later, one of the most influential politicians of the 20th century pointed out an important convergence between Silo's writings and his own. In 1993, Silo received an honorary degree from the Russian Academy of Sciences. 4 years later, Gorbachev authored a small book comparing his ideas with Silo's humanism. But what do humanism and ideas of social change have to do with this internal experience of change that Silo talks about?
If you are indifferent to the pain and suffering of others, none of the help that you ask for will find justification.
There are experiences that can change your life. Maybe it's something that comes to you in a dream. Maybe it's falling in love, or perhaps an unexpected insight.
A veces en el campo, como acá, veo una puesta de sol. Y en esa puesta de sol es como si entendiera todo, por muy poco tiempo. Es entender todo, de golpe, por muy poco tiempo. Ligado a esa puesta de sol, es para mí una experiencia de cambio que puede llegar a ser muy importante. Pero yo habitualmente no saco consecuencias de eso. Todas las personas han tenido experiencias de ese tipo, pero son muy pocas las personas que han profundizado en esas experiencias. Ahí entramos nosotros.
Silo said that our experiences, even the most ineffable, don't stay in our heads. They affect what we do. We act them out in the world. Early in the 1980s, Silo's call for a change that would begin with you and your immediate environment took a truly political turn with the creation of the Humanist Party.
Toda la referencia de Chile sea un lugar que tenga un nombre violento, militar, plaza de armas. Evidentemente, la gran mayoría de los chilenos aspira que este sea
In Chile, it led Thomas Hirsch to a stint as an ambassador in his country's first post-dictatorship government. Even his candidacy for president didn't really strike him as an unusual step.
Yo en realidad entiendo al humanismo o al siloísmo, es decir, a aquello que pone en marcha Silo, como un proyecto transformador de la sociedad, del individuo y la sociedad, y por lo mismo tiene repercusión en todos los ámbitos del quehacer social.
Today, the party is present in many regions of the world, but at the beginning of the 21st century, it was to Latin America that around the world, the eyes of the left were turning. And no wonder, across the continent, a new breed of politicians seemed to be appearing.
Nos conmovemos con el mensaje de Silo.
Drawn from different parts of the political spectrum, but each of them, in some way, promising a break with the past. Among those new politicians, Evo Morales, embattled leader of Bolivia, often hailed as the country's first indigenous president.
Una vez escuché su intervención que empezó a las 6 de la tarde.
The Latin American New Humanist Forum was preceded by a traditional ceremony at this ancient and sacred site of Bolivia's indigenous Aymara people. And among the participants was President Morales, seen as a socialist threat by many of the planet's largest business interests. But President Morales doesn't define himself in terms of the left or the right.
Un periodista me dice, ¿tú eres derechista o izquierdista? Yo digo, ni izquierdista ni derechista, sino humanista.
The first of these humanist forums took place in Moscow, organized by the Humanists and the Gorbachev Foundation. Later ones were held in cities from Lisbon to Dakar, and here in New York City, where the first North American forum was organized by the humanist movement and New York's Hunter College. Participants from Canada, the US, and Mexico were joined by guests from abroad.
The world is absolutely, interconnected. And that means that even if you don't have a problem exactly here in this place, there is a big problem in the world.
It was a wide-ranging, three-day conversation about a direction for North America that went beyond the economic merger of free trade.
One of the questions that I ask my kids and adults all the time is, what is our culture? Here we are, people with African ancestry. What is our culture here?
The government will not listen to us when we protest. That's obvious.
As the Education for Nonviolence Forum in Quebec, instead of being victimized, they organize themselves, and this is very interesting.
Politics, philosophy, personal change, social activism. In all of this varied activity, some say they see nothing but a chaos of changing opinions. Some of us see varied interpretations of a single vision.
Nosotros que tenemos la cabeza tan cerrada, creemos siempre que la interpretación tiene que ser una. Y resulta que las interpretaciones son diversas, porque son diversos los ángulos de las personas. Y eso ocurre con el lenguaje. Parece que fueran cosas distintas. En realidad es la misma historia en el fondo. Son traducciones de ese mensaje.